Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the After the Hug crowd, too. Everybody's here now. That's good. We can get started. Our title this morning is Step into a Higher Truth. And one of the great promises of this teaching is that no matter where we are right now, regardless of how wonderful life is or even how terrible life is, we can, in this very moment, seize the opportunity to step into a higher truth. And stepping into a higher truth entails an evolution in our consciousness. And this evolution in consciousness is preceded by a deliberate act of choice on our part. It's always about choice, isn't it? Every choice we've ever made has brought us here to this place, to this time, to this moment. And some of those choices were conscious, and some of those choices were unconscious. This morning, we are specifically talking about conscious choice, the deliberate choice to grow, because that kind of purposeful intention allows for increased awareness. And if we want to live up here at a higher level of truth, we have to increase our awareness and bring it up here as well. It's got to match. It all has to balance out in our consciousness. So, we're going to talk about evolution first. The very word evolution implies progress, doesn't it? Forward movement, positive growth. But it can be misleading if we apply it in the wrong way. Let me tell you what I mean. If we judge the level of evolution by external appearances, we run the risk of being wrong, of drawing an erroneous conclusion about whatever we're looking at. Because whether we're observing butterfly species or mineral samples or language development, the minute we say that one species or one sample or one language is more advanced than another, is superior to another, we're just wrong. Because everything and everyone and every system is always evolving at exactly the same rate. All species, all cultures, all societies, all people are evolving at exactly the same rate. There's no other time except divine time. So everyone's moving at exactly the same rate. All language is evolving at the same rate. So it's no longer appropriate for us to say, for example, that modern language is superior to or more advanced than tribal language. Technology is evolving at the same rate. You know, I rarely miss an opportunity to remind someone how superior Mac is to PC. Not a day goes by. And how many of you have been the recipients of that sort of claim on my part? Oh, you poor thing. You have a PC. I'm so sorry. I've never had anything but a Mac. Mac is the best. But I'm wrong because all technology is evolving at the same rate. What about religion? This is an area that's of great interest to us, isn't it? Religion and spirituality. And when it comes to religion, some of us like to think that as metaphysicians, we have advanced a little further than people who still adhere to traditional beliefs. How many of you have done that? You've been a little arrogant about your metaphysician status. Well, of course, science of mind is the apex of spiritual thought. And we even quote William James to back up our claim, don't we? Well, William James, the great sociologist of religion, called systems of thought like that of Emerson, which we are, healthy-minded. So we can use this information and even make a really convincing argument and lead a lot of people to believe that we're the best. But in fact, all religions are evolving at the same rate, just like every other phenomenon in life. Now, this view of one religion being higher than another, which is lower, or more advanced, or superior, was widely accepted at one time, believe it or not. Anthropologists and philosophers tended to evaluate the myriad expressions of religious thought vis-a-vis a continuum that went all the way from polytheism through henotheism to monotheism, a continuum from low to high. So polytheism, of course, is a belief in more than one God. It could be 2 gods, it could be 3 gods, it could be multiple gods, it could be an entire pantheon of deities. So examples of this type of belief would be the religions of Mesopotamian civilization or Aztec civilization many thousands of years later. There are lots of those. Somewhere in the middle, we have henotheism, which is similar to polytheism in that it allows for the existence of more than one God, but only one at a time is the supreme one to be worshipped. Now, that probably calls to mind Greek mythology, doesn't it? An entire pantheon of deities who are ruled over by Zeus. Zeus is always number one. He's always at the top. And then we have monotheism, which is often characterized in terms of the Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And for the longest time, scholars held those big 3 up as the pinnacle of religious thought. But they don't get to do that anymore, and neither should we, because we can't look at someone's spiritual development in terms of low and high, and we can't compare it to anyone else's. Everyone's is different. But we can use this model scholars used to apply to religion and apply it to the evolution of our own thought from lower to higher. Because thought evolves around progressive lines as well. So we can draw some parallels to inform us in terms of our teaching. How many of you were born into a metaphysical teaching? Reverend Barbara. Okay, all right, we got 2 people. That's excellent. Now, most of us were not. Is that fair to say? And most of us who were not probably came here by way of a monotheistic religion. Is that the case? Raise your hand if that's the case for you. Okay. So we may have believed in one God, but I'm really interested in the other things we believed in. Because if we believed in God and the devil, for example, or good and evil, then we weren't monotheistic. Because believing in God and something else is duality by definition, and duality is a polytheism unto itself. Okay, now later, when we found metaphysics, science of mind, or whatever branch of metaphysics we first came into, maybe unity, maybe Christian science, divine science, they're all wonderful. We, figuratively speaking, progressed to henotheism. What do I mean by that? Intellectually, we embrace the notion that God is all there is. But we may also have attributed power to conditions, situations, and other people. Anybody do that? Of course God is all there is. And then there's this horrible person next door to me that takes my parking space. Of course God is all there is, but I never have enough money. I seem to be stuck in poverty and lack. Okay, that's henotheism because, yes, our idea of God is this idea that reigns supreme, but we allow for the existence of lesser deities, if you will, in the guise of lack, limitation, disease, fear, and so on, all these kinds of negatives. For purposes of our illustration, monotheism not only refers to our belief in the absolute, one power, one God, one life, one mind. It also refers to our embodiment of that principle. It's not enough to know it. We must live it. We must feel it, breathe it, be it. Embody the principle. And sometimes we're really good at this, aren't we? And then at other times, not so much. The evolution of our thought may require us to move through stages of acquiring knowledge, assimilating understanding, as we move on our way to embodiment of principle, and that's okay because it's not a race. There's no competition for who gets there first. And wherever we are, wherever we decide to place ourselves on that continuum, we have to remember that we're not alone. We're not alone because as metaphysicians, we belong to a collective. We could look at it as a culture or even an ecosystem in which everyone is evolving spiritually. And we're all evolving spiritually at exactly the same rate.